Mutkapan. I'm the Development Coordination Officer at the UN Resident Coordinator's Office.
I'm Jamil Jitu, the National Economist at UNDP Mauritius and Seychelles.
Hi, I'm Fatila Liying. I'm the Head of Office for UNFPA covering Mauritius and Seychelles.
Hi, I'm Vinodha Vaitilingam. I work at WHO Country Office, Mauritius. I'm the Health Promotion Officer.
Was there a moment in your life or work when gender inequality stopped being abstract and became personal?
So, Jamil, what do you think?
Yeah, so for me, basically, my experience is when I was previously working as an economist. So there was that colleague of mine, that lady, when she got her first child, so she had to exit the labor market. And that made me realize how lucky, as a man, we are a bit privileged in the Mauritian economy, but that's also unfair towards women. And I think that's a very bad norm.
And actually, to bounce on what you're saying, me personally, since I was very young at school, I was very engaged in extracurricular activities. I was part of the Amnesty International. I was part with various clubs, but it always felt, abstract in the sense that I was helping other girls. It was not me. I'm privileged in the sense that I have a very caring family. They understand that girls have equal strength as boys. So, but it was really striking for me when as I moved into my professional life, moved the ladder, then you start feeling it. And when it really impacted me is when I actually became a mother. Then you start seeing, through the eyes of people, you can feel that they're questioning your capacity. Will she be able to actually do that? Will she be able to have that capacity? Because she has a child, maybe she will have, you can feel it. And this is what actually made me realize that we are actually not there yet in terms of gender equality. There is that underlying always that the thinking that maybe she won't be able, despite me being whatever top class, very professional always, but people continue guessing our capacities as a woman.
For me, I think it was not sudden. Like, it's not as if gender equality falls on you and say, oh, gender equality exists. I think for me, it was things compounding together, small events in your life decisions that you make, or life decisions that I couldn't make because I was a girl or a woman. So I vividly remember when I was 16, I was still in high school, right? And then someone, an uncle of mine, came to knock at my mom's door and say, we should think about getting your daughter married. And I was like, I wasn't involved in that decision. But when my mom told that after, luckily I didn't get married at 16, that's everything for me. But after, when my mom told me about this, I realized, but why is it someone else deciding what I should be doing at 16? When I was growing up, I was at 16, going to school. I thought that I was going to study before. It was never explained to me that because I was a girl, maybe they were going to make a decision for me about getting married because there were other options in my life about not just becoming a professional, but also being a housewife. And I think just the fact that they made this decision for me struck a deep chord in me that I think kind of impacted or influenced the way I saw my life after. And I think more recently, when I gave birth, at least regards what you were saying, when I had my children, at some point I had to decide, do I want to focus on my career or do I want to be there for my children? Because you can't have both. Unfortunately, we still can't have both. We would like to, like humans, we would like to, but we can't. There are still social expectations on us that is the women's role to be there with the children. And if you're not there with the children, then you're not a good mother. But what if you're a super professional next to that?
Yeah.
So I think having this dichotomy or different conversations, opposing conversations, have added to how I saw that gender equality was not necessarily something that is easily there.
Well, interesting. For me, I must say that I realized at a very early age that I'm privileged regarding access to education, because I understand at that age that not every girls and women were given this opportunity. So for me, I realized very early.
Mauritius is often seen as an economic success story. When we look beyond income levels, what does gender equality actually look like here?
We do have some very strong foundation in Mauritius. Everyone has access to free healthcare, free education. But when you look at the figures, then we see that there is a lot of progress. Despite being a upper middle income country, there is a lot of progress to be done. When you look at the workforce participation, 60% of unemployed today are still women. So why? Why they are not able to access employment? When you look at the number of the percentage of women having own business owned by women, there's still a large disparity between men and women. You still have, I think, around 10% of women compared to 25% of men being employed, having their own business, being self-employed. And I think it goes also deeper than just statistics. There is the whole mindset as well, the structural barriers, the behavioral barriers, and we are not even talking about gender-based violence here. When you looked at the figures of gender-based violence against women, today, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 1 in 4, it's like 80% of victims of sexual, maybe more than that, sexual violence are still women. So why aren't we being? So this is all the facet of equality that we need to look deeper into and not stop at the surface level of our analysis.
Yeah, actually, to me, as an economist, I would frame the question in a different way. We've spoken about income has increased in Mauritius. But now the question is, what proportion of that prosperity has been shared by male and women in our society? You've spoken about that disparity, be it in terms of wage gap, what proportion goes to men and women. We've done a study at UNDP, we found that women are underpaid by 20% relative to men counterparts. We've got a lot of examples over and above that. For example, when you look deeper, women at the workplace, where they are working, often in informal sector, heavily care-intensive sectors, you'll find them often in sectors where the wage is very low. But you'll not find them in the boardroom. You'll not find them in policy-making decisions. So that's the disparity we find. And even we have a big issue of the wage and work ceiling, the glass ceiling, if I may use the term. Maybe you've seen your experience.
I think it raises like a deeper question. When you talk about income, as you rightly said, there's the concept of wealth that comes with it, right? But gender equality, wealth is not equality. And when you say that, okay, we need to have more women for leadership positions, more women in boardrooms, I totally agree with you. In terms of representation, it makes sense. But then it comes back to what Wara was saying about the barriers that exist, that will, however many rules, laws, boardroom rules that you say that we need to have equal representation, we need to have equal leadership roles, there are things in our society that prevents women to access this. To even if they access it, sometimes they can't do it because of unpaid care burden, for example. The unpaid care burden is 4 times higher on women than it is on men in Mauritius. And if we assume, I don't think we assume, it's like a reality here, that more women take on the domestic work, childcare, elderly care, then what time does that leave a woman to focus on her career? So it's, for me, if we talk about income equality, we also need to address these barriers that prevent women from actually accessing these jobs. And it doesn't have anything to do with their competences, their skills, because women are skilled, women are highly competent. It's how we behave in society that are preventing these women from taking on leadership roles. Because, like here in Mauritius, we know that primarily women, as I said earlier, are the caregivers. And if we change that, imagine the amount of time that women will have free, that they can focus on their career. Imagine the number of women that would not have to leave their work early and focus on their deliverables so that they can progress. So I think, it's a deeper conversation that we cannot just say, because we're a middle income country, that we're in economic success, that equality has followed course, because we have progressed economically.
Rightly said, rightly said. I think there's another angle to look at it. So when you're speaking about the structural barriers, we've seen that over a very long time, we've invested a lot in the education sector. But now it's about having invested so much in education, how are we structuring capable in our economy to absorb that higher level of education to have better access for women in the labor market so that we can have more equality and so that women can thrive economically in terms of power, progression, economic security, or even retention in the workplace. I think that's also something very important when we talk about income.
If I may, actually, we say women are part as the UN. We consider the women, youth, girls, boys, people with disabilities as part of the vulnerable, often left behind. But there is one thing that we should also highlight when we, even in our own definition, vulnerability doesn't come from lack of strength. It's not internal. We lack strength or we are vulnerable. It's about how the society is conceptualized, the external factors that make these specific group actually vulnerable. It is the society conceptualized in a way to benefit each and everyone or not. And those who are not benefiting of how the society is conceptualized, these what we term as actually vulnerable. It's not inner. It's not the inner factors that make us vulnerable.
Yeah.
We often hear gender equality described as a women's issue. Why is that framing narrow, especially for a country thinking about its future?
I do not agree that gender equality is a woman issue, because when you educate a girl, you empower a girl, you empower a woman. It's the family that you empower. It's the whole society. So it's not an issue about just a woman. It's a family. It's boys and girls. It's women and men.
I can understand your perspective, and I fully agree with what you're saying, that when we empower a girl, when we empower a woman, it's really society at large that is benefiting. But statistically speaking, not statistically speaking, but gender equality exists because there is a disparity. And this disparity affects mostly women and girls. And I think from my perspective, understanding it from this perspective, then I can see why some people might think that gender equality is framed most as a women's issue, because we're primarily targeting the discrepancy that women face in life, the discriminations that women face in life that is statistically higher than what men face. I think it's just a framing issue, like how we're saying, but I totally agree that it shouldn't be just women that are involved in trying to get gender equality become something, that it is something that both men and women should be involved in.
Well,
Yeah.
To me, I feel that it's not always right to say that it's a gender issue, because let's take an example of GBV. We've seen men being subject to gender-based violence at home, domestic violence. That's one aspect of it. And I feel that it's on a case-to-case basis. In certain countries, people could claim that it's a women issue, but in other countries, it could be a men issue. For example, not GBV, but when we talk about, for example, opportunities in the workplace or let's take the example of Seychelles. You'll find a story, and then Mauritius, it would be different. So that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it, when we are talking about the vision, the long-term aspect, it's a generation thing. For one generation, like you have been mentioning about social norms and values, it differs across generation. So for the next 10 years, the perception could be one way, but the next 20 years, it could be different. So that is subject to change over the long term. So that's why I would say it's not always a women issue.
Just to reframe it, as you were saying, it's being seen as a gender issue because for now, when we talk about all the disparities, we are the one being seen as more disadvantaged. I mean, the women are being seen as more disadvantaged. But to find solutions, it's each and everyone's issue, and each and everyone should be working together to solve the issue. We are all allies in this. Yeah. And we cannot move forward if we do not educate our young boys, because as I've been saying several times, it's also a behavioral change that we need to see. And we need to educate our young boys, our young girls, how the society is right now and what is positive masculinity, for instance. These are all the factors that will help us move forward together. So if I may reframe it, it's being seen as not just a women issue. Gender is not just women and men. Actually, we also have other groups from the LGBTQ who are also being disadvantaged. So it needs to be enlarged in that definition, but also it's an issue of it's affecting these groups, women, LGBTQ, but it should be solved all together. So it's each and everyone's issue. When we are disadvantaged, the whole society is disadvantaged, as you were saying.
But I wanted to come back to what you said. You talked about social cultural norms and how generations over generations, we might be looking towards change. That's how change happens over generation. Maybe just a reflection to all of us over the last 10, 20 years in Mauritius. What's your take on progress on gender equality? Do you see there's a difference in the way that people thought when you were 15 and now you're not 15 anymore? In my opinion, I will answer my own question, but in my opinion, I think it hasn't moved a lot. Right? We talk about gender equality on paper mostly, but in practice, we're not there yet. I'm seeing women coming back. If I think of women on my own age, they come back, and when they were working abroad, and they come back, and now they are, staying at home. And yes, it's a choice. Okay, I think that I think is something that we need to underline. It's also a choice to want to be a stay-at-home mom, but there seems to be, to me, an increasing understanding that it is still a woman's place to take care of the family. And in my perspective, I don't see that this has changed a lot.
I mean, it differs. It differs from different. How do you say that? Different strata of the society. Some are really trying, but still the most vulnerable of being left behind. But I would try to let's not be that gloomy. We've made a lot of progress, and the changes are happening, but not at the pace that we want to see. Even us at the UN family, the UN team, we are doing so much in terms of supporting in gender equality, in terms of supporting the domestic violence bill, as well as supporting women empowerment through allowing them to access the African market. You will know that better, Jamia, the FCFT. We are doing quite a lot with at national level. But if you look at also the global level, what is working is that a whole of government approach. We've seen good examples when I'm talking about violence, for instance. The whole of government approach from prevention to response. When this is there, then we can move forward. Secondly, the civil society. The civil society, I think, has a huge role to play in advocating for gender equality, for ensuring that the voices of from the grassroots level is reaching to the policy level as well. And I don't know if you want to add to that. And I was thinking about also the part of not integrating what is the risk of not integrating women in the economic progression into the country's progress as a whole. What we're seeing now, we are having a population with more women than men. So not including women is also losing half of your population into the productivity of your country. It's productivity, it's tax revenues, it's and not. I was about to say, let's forget the financial part, but the talent, the innovation. We've seen so many innovation from women. We wouldn't even have computers if there were no women. We have brilliant programmers, the first programmers with women. We have Marie Curie. So this is all talent lost if you do not integrate women. And there is also one important thing. When we look at statistics, we have an aging population, and women are living longer than men. So what are we looking at in the near future? Women who, if they are not involved in the economic sector, they are not employed, what will happen? No social security, no medical security. Who will be left into the poverty? It will be women. So yeah, so this is also an important aspect of integration of women into the economic life.
It's not also about awareness. People are aware about gender equality, but it's action which does not follow. There are barriers like cultural barriers that we have to admit can be a blockage to equality. So we have to also recognize that social and cultural barriers are present in the society.
Yeah, fully agree with you. And what Vara also said, from an economic perspective, so if we don't integrate the women, for example, in Mauritius, so you'll find that the labor market for women participation went around 40 to 45%. What does that mean? Underutilization of our very scarce, limited resources, and especially in the context of 6 countries, that's all we have, our human capacity. So it represents a suboptimal level of output. And like you mentioned, with an increasing dependency ratio in Mauritius, for example, we need to mobilize more revenue in terms of taxation. If we would be having more women in the labor force, that would imply higher tax base. And to come back to your idea of that women are very, not money makers, but I would reframe it that women are very talented.
Yeah.
They are talented. They can be very productive and contribute innovative in the economy. So, and that could be having a multiplied effect on our GDP. I think that's something very important to point out.
Yeah, definitely.
How does having control over her own body shape a woman's ability to plan her education, career, and future?
Bodily autonomy is a very interesting concept when we think about, this ability to make decisions about your own body, your own health, and how this impacts your life, basically. So I think in Mauritius, it is very interesting because we have the broad spectrum of how, these choices on your body, on your health impact your life. And Vinada, you will stand to correct me. Teenage pregnancy is something that is of an issue in Mauritius, but I think we can flip it the other way around too. Starting early, you have teenage girls that do need to have bodily autonomy, that need to be able to make informed choices about how they want to navigate their sexuality, sexual lives, and how this may have an impact or not on their future. But on the other hand, in Mauritius, when we talk about working women, we are increasingly, women are aging, right? And we're increasingly big part of the workforce. I think as a middle income country, our women are educated. And being educated already provides you, I think, more possibilities to make decisions about how and where you want your life to go. That said, when we talk about the labor market now, a woman, I'm just fresh out of school, and then I'm fresh out of school, I join a company, I know I can make money in that company by focusing my efforts in my career, in whatever the deliverables that I'm saying. The issue is sometimes societal expectations make that there comes a point where someone will tell that woman or young girl, when are you going to have a child? She's 20, say hypothetically, she's 23, she's at the summum she's just entering the labor market fresh. We're asking you when you're making a child. So she has to make a decision whether she wants to focus on her career or go forward. And I think this is where bodily autonomy, this capacity to be able to say, well, right now, I know maybe someday I want to have a child, maybe I don't, maybe I want to postpone it to later, but giving her these possibilities is important for her to be able to navigate her future. It shouldn't be like because you're at this age that you need to reproduce. And it shouldn't be because you're at this age that you cannot reproduce anymore. I think our system needs to make it in a way that at whichever age, okay, biologically possible, but can be technology assisted, you want or not to have a child is the choice of the woman. And I think this is where we're getting at when they're asking, how does a woman's choice on her body, on her health impact her decision in the future? When we talk about reproductive health, it's not so much about making the child, but making and giving birth, but also about deciding when, how many children I want to have or not. That is also a choice that we often forget to give women, that you may decide to not have children. And it's totally okay to not have children.
And to build on what you just said, Priscilla, it's also about the unmet reproductive needs of women and girls. We have to face the reality. Nowadays, our girls are sexually active at a very young age, and they have risky behaviors. So I think empowering them to make informed decision and to have a less risky behavior will help them to be more, to contribute more to the economy and take their own decision about their health.
Yeah. And their life. Yeah.
How does climate change add another layer to the pressures women already face?
That's an interesting question because when you look at our country as a small island developing state, even that, what does that mean? We are more vulnerable as a country itself to external shocks. And actually, you hinted at this earlier, Jamil, about what is the job that women are mostly doing. It's low-skill job. And these positions themselves are more vulnerable. And what happened during COVID? We saw that who were the most affected in terms of impact on their job. Who was, when kids had to stay at home, everyone was at home, who had to resign to take care of the household. And these are actually substantiated by studies themselves. Women were more impacted. Women had to leave their job to take care of the household. And even today, when we look at our own realities, as I said, we are mostly affected by sudden change in weather. We have flash floods. We have, I don't know how many times, school are closed. So who are the ones who have to stay at home to take care of the kids? So it's mostly women.
Just to add that women live longer than men globally. Even in Mauritius, when we look at the aging of the population, women represent a major part of it. So definitely women will be impacted by climate change, elderly people. So I think we need to re-look at their needs. So we need to empower them, make them more resilient in terms of knowledge, but also empower them to address emerging diseases, which could be related to climate change.
Yeah.
When we talk about rights, justice, action for women and girls, what does that actually look like in action on the ground in Mauritius? And what are the fastest ways we can move forward?
No country has closed the legal gap. Today, as per the latest report of the Secretary General on implementation of the Beijing Action Plan, we still have 60% of women actually benefit only 60% of rights that men enjoy. So this is the figure. I don't think we have these kind of figures at national level. But for me, sometimes justice exists, but the one who actually implements ensure that justice is delivered, sometimes they look at it through their own eyes, and their own eyes still have some kind of barriers in terms of implementation. At the end of the day, laws is a lot also. It's not my forte, but it's a lot about how you're implementing, how you're interpreting the law. And unfortunately, discriminatory laws still exist, even in Mauritius. So for me, rights, justice, and action, it speaks a lot because it also makes us think. And in terms of action, this is where I really encourage civil society to take action also, from policymakers, but also coordinated action at civil society level to ensure that justice is delivered. They are our guarantors to ensure they are the one working with the population, with women and girls on the ground. So they also can speak up when justice is not being delivered to those women, and girls in how it should.
I totally agree with you, Vara. Very often the laws are there to protect women, girls. The main issue is about enforcement of the law and to ensure that justice is done, fairness towards women and girls, and their rights are respected. And regarding action, I believe that it should come from each and every one of us, including boys, including men, including the whole society.
Whichever of these three words, right, justice, and action, the most important thing is about mindset. Mindset of politicians, of workers, of each one of us. Because this is the start of everything. We start with a mindset, and this is what translates into legislation, and this is what leads to right, justice, and action. For me, that's the most important thing. Change in mindset and understanding of what gender equality actually means.
Mauritius has built strong foundations, and this has been highlighted so often in our conversation. And the next step would be to really make sure that these foundations work for everybody, not mostly men, but that really benefits everyone. Once we understand that gender equality is not something that is favoring women, but rather that we're trying to look at designing systems that will be benefiting everyone, then yes, there is hope that things may change.
And this brings me to my quote, when women rise, the whole economy rises.
Yeah, there is a lot of hope. I think the fact that we are here, being able to talk about it, be able to discuss it openly, and everywhere, in every strata of the society, you can actually have this discussion. There is a lot of hope. Now we really need to act on the structural barriers, the root causes, we all hinted toward the mindset, the behavioral change that needs to be ingrained.
Actually, there's a solution for everything. So that's why we need to keep hope and still expect the best until we reach where we want to achieve in terms of gender equality, hopefully.
For me, I believe it's very important for every girl, every woman to stand up and speak, be able to speak and be heard. This is very important, be heard and action be taken. Because not taking action is also it also implies many things. So remaining silent, it's an answer to gender inequality. I believe we need to be heard and speak out. We should be able to be heard.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. I think so often we look at gender equality at how it impacts economic growth, a country's success, education, that we forget that gender equality at its core is really looking at real lives. These are issues that impact real women, real girls. And if we look at designing systems and think about designing systems that consider lives of people rather than KPIs or metrics or SDGs, then, I think we stand to gain because we're looking at more at real lives rather than, assumptions or societal expectations on how this and this should be or what are the levels to which we need to rise. Yeah. At the core of it, I think, is we need to remember that gender equality is about people